Gentlemen, hunting season is approaching. I don't know about you, but I'm ready. Tonight we've come to the right place to learn about cold weather comfort for all sorts of outdoor people, men, women, and children. For the place we're visiting tonight has a business of providing comfort. I'm Bill Nielsen, and this is Success Story.
Success Story, and On the Spot live telecast, brought to you each week from somewhere in the Pacific Northwest as a public service by Richfield, makers of 100-plus boron superoctane gasoline and a complete line of years ahead petroleum products. Tonight, our Success Story cameras visit the Seattle Quilt Manufacturing Company located at 310 First Avenue South, a business that actually began with Grandmother's Comforters 63 years ago in Philadelphia. Based upon that boyhood experience, two brothers founded the company in Seattle back in 1915. Quilts and pillows were the main items of manufacture for many years, but Seattle Quilt was one of the first companies, if not the first, to develop the quilt or comforter into a new kind of product, the sleeping bag. And today, comfy sleeping bags are known and used throughout America, and indeed much of the outside world. You'll find them in the American exhibit in Moscow. They went with Seattle school teacher Billy May Gammon up the steep slopes of Mount Kilimanjaro when she went on that East African safari for Bold Journey. Scandinavian Airlines used them on the first polar route flights. Still another development from the old quilting business has been comfy down-filled garments for outdoor wear. These are nationally famous too, from the woods of Maine to the ranches of Texas to the Arctic tundra, where the big comfy down-filled jackets are worn by Dewline construction crews. And this company's ski suits went with the United States Alpine ski team to Germany 2 years ago. Quite a story of development. From a little quilt shop in a garage on 25th Avenue near Cherry Street to one of the world's most famous brands in sleeping bags and cold weather gear. Here is one of the early day shops after the company had moved to a location on First Avenue South. For the time and the place, they were turning out a lot of comforters and pillows, but still less than a dozen people were employed. From the beginning, founder Charles Miller insisted on high standards of quality and the guaranteed integrity of the factory's brand name. In the mid-1920s, Mr. Miller is seen in front of a newer and larger quarters with his son Morris. On the window now it says, "Manufacturers of Alaskan Sleeping Bags." There's a story in that too, but let's hear it from young Morris Miller some 35 years later.
Now let's meet Morris Miller, the president of Seattle Quilt Manufacturing Company, and a fisherman extraordinary. Did I get those in the right order, Maury?
Sure did, Bill.
How did you happen to start in the sleeping bag business?
Well, quite a number of years ago, Dad had a special order from the Alaska Railroad when it was being built for sleeping bags. They were made of down comforters covered with army duck with harness snaps as fasteners.
That was right about at the beginning of the sleeping bag craze, wasn't it?
Yes, Bill, it really was the beginning.
How did the bags progress from the early days of the Alaska Railroad?
Well, there was a little demand, and then all of a sudden there was some demand for the mountaineers through some of the outdoor stores in Seattle. We made special lightweight down bags for the mountaineer clubs.
Did you find that they were difficult to sell in those early days?
Yes, Bill, they were, because there was very little demand.
Actually, I understand that you consigned a number of them to the local department stores,
Well,
right?
the large department stores, in order to get sleeping bags started and get them on the counter, we sold them on a consigned basis.
In other words, if they didn't sell them, they didn't have to pay
You're
for them.
right, Bill.
What happened to the quilts then after the sleeping bag
Well,
started?
as the years grew on, thank the Lord, our production grew so large in sleeping bags, we discontinued the manufacturing of comforters.
Now I understand, purchased them for sale.
Now we purchase them for our wholesale division.
Thank you, Maury.
Thank you, Bill.
Right.
When you stop to think about it, comforter to sleeping bag is a perfectly natural evolution. Mr. Miller's father was buying down and filling both quilts and pillows over 40 years ago. And down filling today, although done with more modern equipment, is very much like it used to be. Down is one of those remarkable products of nature that has never been duplicated, much less improved upon. It gives exceptional warmth without weight. It breathes. It retains still, dry air. It expels moisture. A more perfect insulating material couldn't be imagined. Here we see 4.5 pounds of 100% new duck going into a Polar Supreme comfy sleeping bag. Temperature tested to 50 degrees below zero, 82 degrees below freezing. When completed, it'll be the finest sleeping bag money can buy. Besides the quantity of prime duck down, you will notice that the bag has a tube construction, each tube filled separately. This means, of course, that the down simply can't bunch up or thin out. And here you see the work on tube construction for the Polar Supreme. Some down-filled comfy bags are made with I-beam tubes, but in this case, they are overlapping V-tubes, the finest possible construction to assure even distribution of the insulating down. As you see, the V's are alternately inverted, assuring full insulation even at the seam. True, not everybody is headed for the polar regions, and a lot of camping is done in summer in the temperate zones. Not everybody is looking for the warmest, most rugged sleeping bag in the world. Consequently, comfy bags come in a variety of weights and construction, and also with other types of insulation. Celanese Celocloud and DuPont Dacron are outstanding man-made fibers, non-allergic, resilient, and non-matting. Here you see how sleeping bags are filled with fiber bats. In this case, 100% virgin Dacron fiber fill, warmest and most resilient of man-made fibers. Inexpensive sleeping bags for summer use or for use where temperatures are moderate are sometimes insulated with a combination of wool and nylon too. To show you how complete the comfy line is, prices range from about $10 up to $150. Weight of insulation varies from 2 to 6 pounds, depending on the type of material used and the protection needed. There's no guesswork as to the performance that can be expected from any of these bags. They are all temperature tested, and that buyer can select one that is adequate at more than 30 degrees above freezing or more than 80 degrees below freezing. Seattle Quilt was the first to temperature test sleeping bags, calling on the services of an independent scientific team back in 1947. Since that time, all comfy sleeping bags have been scientifically tested, rated, and tagged accordingly. Although tube construction, as we have seen, is used for the very finest down-filled sleeping bags, most of those designed for average use have quilted construction. That is accomplished in these automatic quilting machines called scroll quilters. While the machine does the work automatically, the next quilt is stretched and secured in the frame. As you can see from the material here, the day has passed when plain colors and plaids were sufficient to satisfy the tastes of the public. The modern market is decidedly color and design conscious, and to meet this demand, Seattle Quilt has exclusive patterns designed in New York and made up especially for comfy sleeping bags. Outdoor themes, such as fish and game, are among the most popular, but you can still get stripes, plaids, and solid colors if that's more to your liking. While tabs are going through the quilting machine on the second floor of the plant, just one floor above, another battery of sewing machines is working on the head flaps. These come in several styles. Most sleeping bags have tent flaps. Many also have hoods. The exclusive weather-sealed hood is a feature on many comfy models. Others are made with the European-type drawstring hood. At these machines, labels and tickets are attached too. Whatever the style, weight, or pattern, all are identified by the comfy label and are quality guaranteed. A label that's equally familiar in the piney woods of Dixie and inside the Arctic Circle.
Right now, let's meet the production manager of Seattle Quilt, Leonard Hammer. Leonard, how many different types of sleeping bags do you produce here?
Well, we have about 85 catalog bags, Bill, but when you take our numerous covering materials and lining materials combined with 5 or 6 different filling materials, you can see we can get well over 500 different models.
Very clearly. How many people do you employ?
Right at the present time, we have over 100 on production. That does not count our shipping room, office, our jobbing department, and our national sales organization.
Overall, how many?
Overall, between 150 and 175, I'm not sure.
How many square feet of floor space do you have here?
At the present time, we're using better than 7,000 square feet.
I understand you've made some revisions in machinery recently which enables you to produce far better.
Yes, we've gotten some modern equipment recently, which has increased our production immensely in the last 2 to 3 years.
Are you presently producing at peak capacity?
Yes, we are, Bill, but I wish we could produce more.
Thanks very much, Leonard.
Here's where sleeping bag covers of poplins, denims, twills, ducks, and nylon are constructed and sewed to the pads, if that's the kind of sleeping bag. As we'll see in a few moments, this isn't always the case. In any event, pads, flaps, and covers come together here. The sleeping bag is finished, zippers stitched in, snaps attached. Only tested zippers are used, and on bags built for cold temperatures, the heavy zippers are specially treated to resist icing and corrosion. Fine workmanship is combined with these quality materials. Seen here is Vicki Gowan, production assistant in charge of sleeping bag operations. Before the finished bags leave the shop, they must pass final inspection. Actually, comfy sleeping bags are subjected to triple inspection and unconditionally guaranteed. Although it would be impossible for us to mention all the different comfy sleeping bags that are made for every conceivable type of use, a few other examples are worthy of note. For example, Seattle Quilt's new marine sleeping bag, chosen for the Seattle racing yacht, the Marutha, one of the entries in this year's Los Angeles to Honolulu race. It features a navy cover and a smart nautical pattern. Another pace setter is this sleeping bag, designed especially to fit the modern trend toward station wagon living. Full zippers, side and bottom, make it possible to use this as 2 separate sleeping bags whenever desired. And for a revolutionary new concept in sleeping bags, here's the Comfy Inserta. Because pad and cover are packaged separately, you can make up your own custom-built sleeping bag at the store. You can change or add pads for different seasons or different conditions. You can clean the pad and cover separately. The pad alone can be zipped or snapped as an uncovered sleeping bag for cabin use. Spread out, the pad and its bed-size comforter you can use at home or anywhere. A most versatile sleeping bag that, with a snap or a zip, can be made to fit any need, as Seattle Quilt sales manager Tom Hestad demonstrated. A Seattle pioneer in the field is first again with a new idea in sleeping bags. Quite a difference between the models today and the canvas-covered Alaskan model with the harness snaps that worked on the Seward to Fairbanks Railroad years ago. But this is just another indication that the firm is still of pioneering bent. You are viewing Success Story, a series of on-the-spot telecasts originating each week somewhere in the Pacific Northwest and brought to you live and direct as a public service by Richfield. Tonight's Success Story is originating at Seattle Quilt Manufacturing Company, located at 310 First Avenue South, home of comfy sleeping bags and comfy down-insulated garments for outdoor wear. It all began in Seattle back in 1915, but in a way it really began about 20 years earlier in Philadelphia, when 2 brothers helped pull heavy quilts through a machine in their mother's shop. They were named Jack and Charles Miller. It took a little while for them to get to Seattle, and before that happened, Jack worked as a steam fitter on the Panama Canal. There he heard about the booming new Pacific Northwest. He came, he saw, he liked it, and he's been here ever since.
And this is Jack Miller, one of the founders of Seattle Quilt Manufacturing Company, and a man who has found it very, very difficult indeed to retire completely from the business. Right, Jack?
Right.
How many people did you employ in the original Seattle Quilt shop here in Seattle?
Employed ourselves, 2 of us.
And the both of you handled the entire job, right?
Right.
Did you have any idea that sleeping bags would become so popular when you built those first ones for the
Not
Seattle?
quite like it is, but I felt that it was a good line on account of we lived close to Alaska, and that there was a big country for sleeping bags.
Well, believe me, you certainly started something back there in those early days, Jack.
Yes.
Been real nice talking to you.
Thank you.
Now let's meet the sister of the original founders of Seattle Quilt Manufacturing Company, Bess Miller, who is now the secretary of the company, right, Bess?
Yes, that's right.
Just how many years ago did you first appear on the scene here?
Oh, it's a long time, 33 years.
And how many people were employed in those days?
Around about 10 people.
Where were the goods sold primarily in those days?
In the state of Washington and Alaska.
And what were some of the other items that were produced?
Well, we manufactured comforters, baby comforters, fancy pillows, and made curtains to order, drapes, and most anything that is sewing could be done.
A lot of changes
That
since
line,
then.
oh,
One
yes.
thing has remained the same, however, and that's the name Comfy.
Oh, that's grand.
Thank you, Miss Miller.
Yes.
Well, another thing that hasn't changed is the company's insistence on quality in the line. And even the garment division is a natural outgrowth of all Seattle Quilt's long history, for they specialize in down-filled garments. Just as style has come to sleeping bags, it most certainly is here in the outdoor garment field. The big quilt, that's the last word in ski outfits today, is nothing new to Seattle Quilt. But stylist Alice Bergstrom keeps all garments for women and girls sharp and new in line and style detail. Equally important, these are outdoor garments designed for practicality and exceptional comfort. Another key individual in the garment division is Gene Acuzzo, designer and production coordinator. To learn more about this side of Seattle Quilt's operations today, let's talk with him now.
Oh, it's all in one piece, right? Right now, friends, we're in the garment division, and right here on this table is where the garment actually begins. Gene, exactly what are you doing here presently?
Well, I'm in the process of checking over the patterns which I've taken off these gratings right here.
What are some of the special considerations that you must consider in laying out and designing a garment for outdoor use?
Well, these coats are worn by active outdoorsmen, and therefore it must be bind-free, built rugged, yet warm and light.
Very important. What are some of the features that you build into your particular garments?
Well, we have special features such as this weather strip, and also...
The purpose of this weather stripping, then, is to hold the cold air from coming through the zipper, right?
Right. And also we have the tie string at the waist, and the knit storm cuff, which all retains the body heat.
And I'm sure that you have one very important feature right here. Would you tell us about this inner insulation?
That's right. The down, nature's own insulation, which has never been duplicated.
Actually, down is the most warm material possible for insulation in something of this nature, sleeping bags, correct? Believe me, you've built a garment which is very pleasing to look at and one which is really built to do a job. Thank you, Gene.
You can see that this saddle horn model would be right at home on the Texas range and please any man who likes the Western style. It also has down-filled warmth, a water-repellent nylon cotton cover, built-in hand warmers, and an action-backed construction. Whether the garment is made Western ranch style or Alaskan style, for skiing, hunting, or sports, for school or business wear, the practical needs of the outdoor man or woman get top priority. Besides jackets and coats in a wide variety of styles, the garment division also makes down-insulated pants and underwear, down-insulated caps, hoods, and boots. When any garment goes into production, the selected material is laid out, many layers thick, on the cutting table. The patterns we saw a moment ago come to the cutting room and are marked on the top layer. Then all layers are cut to pattern with an electrical cutter. One of the most important skills in the cutting room is properly laying out the pattern on the material for the least possible waste. There may also be considerations of construction and pattern in the material. From the cutting table, the pieces move to the sewing room. Here, there are dozens of power machines, many of them designed for one special job. Remembering that these are down-insulated garments, you will realize that every garment or its insulated liner has 2 or 3 layers of material. These are sewn to contain the down, and the down filling is done in an adjacent room, as we saw in the case of the sleeping bag. When the double pieces have been filled with down, they are quilted in these machines. Although it's not a feature of all comfy garments, many of them have collars and hoods of fur. Because fur is a fitting complement to many coats of this type and a virtual necessity for the Arctic hood, Seattle Quilt has a fur department in the plant. The company is, in fact, the largest user of mouton on the West Coast. This is a specially processed sheepskin that is used here for colors, such as we saw on the Western-style car coat a few minutes ago. Synthetic pile fabrics are also used for collars of a similar type. For a deluxe Arctic hood, they use Timberwolf strips on the outside to break the wind, and for the rough against the face, Wolverine strips. This is more than a very attractive trim. It's the finest protective hood known. Like goose down, Wolverine is one of those remarkable products of nature that man has never duplicated. As the Eskimos discovered long ago, it won't collect frost.
While we're here in the garment division, suppose we meet a lady who's a real expert on these power machines. She's Mrs. Cora Noakes. Mrs. Noakes, how long have you been with Seattle Quilt?
Almost 29 years.
Well, that takes us back to the days of the fancy bedspreads and lace curtains, doesn't it?
Yes, it does.
What were some of the other items in those days?
Oh, pillow forms and drapes, sleeping bags, quilts.
No, I was interested today. Mrs. Noakes mentioned to me that she had actually sort of brought up some of the executives in the organization. Thanks very much, Mrs. Noakes. Hi, Esther. How are you? This is Esther Adams, friends, the floor supervisor here on the 4th floor. Right now, let's meet a production assistant by the name of Ed Miller. Ed is the man in charge of maintenance here. And Ed, I'm going to ask you, how many machines do you have in operation in the plant?
I have approximately 110 machines, Bill.
What are the most frequent maintenance problems that you run into?
Oh, the repairs and keeping the sewing hooks in working order.
What happens to them?
They get burred up from the needles and so forth, and get worn.
Do you conduct periodic preventive maintenance on all of the machines?
Yes, we do it on a periodical monthly check.
Exactly what do you check and take care of?
We check for the worn parts and where it burrs from needles and so forth.